Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Aligned, Engaged, Fulfilled podcast, the show for bold leaders, entrepreneurs, and change makers who want to see a better, more human way of working. One where people and purpose drive profits, not the other way around. Now, if you're listening to this, you've made it to the end of our debut season, and I want to start by thanking you for your support. Thank you for lending me your ears, your time, and your trust over these past few months. Thank you for sharing the stories and messages we've explored this season, and thank you for your willingness to grow and to ask questions that will lead you to your own transformation. With your support, we've been able to reach thousands of people across our channels just within a few short months. So, for that, thank you. Usually, I start the show with a hook, but today we're doing something different. For the first time ever, it's just you and me. No guest, no dialogue, just me and my story. Since I started this podcast, I've had several people ask me if I'll always have guests on the show or if I ever plan to do a solo episode, and the answer was always yes. That was always a plan, but the point of this show is to amplify other people's voices, their stories. So I always plan to save my solo episode for the last episode so that I can take the opportunity to summarize the season and reiterate the lessons that we've gained. But bear with me because talking to the camera with no one engaging with me in conversation is a new experience. It's honestly weird and I'm still getting used to it. I'm much better at having a conversation where I can ask people questions and challenge their thinking. Honestly, I've tried to record this episode a few times. I try to give you a polished keynote about my consulting framework, but every time I listened back, it felt cold. It felt static. And if I'm going to ask you to be authentic in your career, I owe you the same courtesy. So today, I don't want to just give you a lecture. I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you why I'm here, why this podcast exists, and why I walked away from a C suite career that everyone told me I should be grateful for to build something from scratch. I want to take this opportunity to not just recap the season, but to tell you a little bit about my story and my experience and how I use that experience to help you with yours. Stick with me for the next 30 minutes, and I promise you'll leave this episode with some value and more power to build a career, a business, and a life that you can truly be grateful for. For my whole life, I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a leader. I've been drawn to leadership roles for as long as I can remember, going back to preschool when I would volunteer to lead the class in activities or performances. I didn't know why, but I couldn't help wanting to lead. There isn't a point in my life when I wasn't in some kind of leadership role, but the mediums through which I led others weren't always the same. And in terms of my career, I bounced from one industry to another. The way that I understood it back then, I was just trying to find my footing someplace where I can nurture my passion. After all, that's the name of the game, right? Pursue your passion. But the problem is, and I only really understood this over the past year, that our passions are multifaceted and they're very dynamic. We don't just have one single passion. The things that we're passionate about changes with our life experiences. While I've been grateful for the opportunities that I've had, I can't say that I've ever truly felt like I was standing firmly where I'm supposed to be and doing what I should be doing. Earlier this year, I started on this journey of challenging the status quo of workplace culture, and it became more and more clear that the old playbook is broken. For decades, we've been told to stay within the systemic box, to color within the corporate 9 to 5 lines, to follow the disempowering rules, and to chase elusive engagement in our jobs. We've done all of that, but all it's done is leave us feeling burnt out, taken advantage of, or taken for granted, and frankly, dehumanized. If you look around or if you listen to that voice in your head, you'll notice it. There's this gnawing feeling of disconnection. There's this quiet hum of fatigue, of exhaustion, a heavy weight of misalignment that makes even the most passionate work feel soul crushing. Even if you aren't experiencing it yourself, there's no denying that the problem is real for millions of people. We've all seen the headlines: the great resignation, quiet quitting, rage quitting, unbossing. But these aren't just headlines, they're not just trends. They're symptoms of a deeply rooted problem, a fundamental disconnect eating away at the heart of our businesses, our careers, and inevitably our lives. And if you think that this is just a feeling, the data is literally screaming it at us. If you know me, if you've spoken to me in the past year, you know that Gallup's State of the Global Workplace report is my Bible. In that report earlier this year, Gallup revealed that only 21% of the entire global workforce is actively engaged at work, and that 17% are actively disengaged. When asked to evaluate their lives, only 33% of the global workforce consider themselves thriving. 58% say that they're struggling, and 9% say that they're suffering. In terms of daily emotions experienced by people throughout the day, 40% say that they experience stress, 21% experience anger, 23% experience sadness, and 22% experience loneliness. So, to summarize the state of people at the end of 2025, we're lonely, stressed, and disengaged. Earlier this month, Glassdoor released their 2026 Work Life Trends report, and they quantified exactly what many of us have been feeling about our work experience. They found that in employee reviews mentioning senior leadership on their platform, the word disconnect has increased 24% in just 1 year. But it gets worse. Terms like miscommunication are up 25%, distrust is up 26%, and the word misaligned has surged by 149%. Think about that. We moved from one pandemic to another because we're now living in a pandemic of loneliness and stress. The data isn't just numbers, it's a picture of human suffering. And yes, alignment has become a mainstream buzzword in the world of work, but this data proves that we have barely scratched the surface on what it means to be aligned. It's deeper and so much more nuanced than just knowing how you and your role contribute to the company's vision. Somewhere along the way, businesses forgot that they exist first and foremost to solve a problem, to provide a solution to their customers' needs, and that includes their employees who choose to become a part of their company, their mission, in part because it solves their basic physiological and safety needs for food, water, shelter, security, and stability. What we're seeing so strongly today in the world of work is about a fundamental breach of contract between the human spirit and the modern workplace. And it's only going to get worse as we move further into the age of AI. Now, sadly, I know this breach intimately. I didn't just read about it in a report or hear about it from someone on social media. I lived it. I've seen this disconnect grow over the last 2 decades, both within myself and the broader landscape. For years, I was chasing engagement, trying to leverage my passion to find a career that served my needs. I worked in retail, fashion, music education, healthcare, wellness, fitness, and marketing. I transitioned from job to job in pursuit of something that made me feel like I was in the right place, but nothing ever stuck. Nothing ever fully felt right for long enough. Then, 7 years ago, my path seemed clear. I developed a strong interest for marketing and business, and I decided to pursue my marketing degree. At that time, I was working for an organization that had no formal marketing department, and I saw an opportunity to grow my skills while serving an organization whose mission, values, and people I believed in wholeheartedly. So I asked if I could establish the company's marketing department and was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity. I fell in love with the art of marketing because it was so interconnected with the art of leadership. From there, it was clear that I would leverage my passion for business to build a cutting edge marketing agency. I saw marketing as this powerful force for change. But even with that passion, something felt incomplete. But despite that, I pushed on. I kept on grinding because that's what we're taught to do. I've worked in toxic environments and I've worked in psychologically safe environments. I've had leaders tell me to stay in my lane, to not overstep, to just do my job, to do less and put less effort. I've had leaders tell me that I'm an overachiever and that I can't possibly be the visionary because they were the visionary. I didn't realize it until recently, but I started to believe all of these things and it started to shape me into a person that until earlier this year, I didn't recognize anymore. A previous guest on our show and now a good friend and business partner of mine, Katie Toro, talked about the seasons of our lives and how that influences changes in our careers. Truthfully, getting married and then having my daughter 3 years ago fundamentally changed me in ways that I would have never imagined. It rewired me to tolerate less, to be more direct about what I want, and it forced me to look at the world through a different lens. Not only did I want to build a comfortable life for my wife and my daughter, but I wanted to build a better world where they and other people too can be happy and fulfilled in whatever way they define it. That internal desire to do and to be better, paired with the external effects of a global pandemic and a polarizing political climate, unlocked something in me that was becoming more and more difficult to ignore. Earlier this year, I was sitting in the C suite. I had the title, I had the six-figure salary, had reached the level of success that we're all told to strive for. By every external metric, I had made it. But internally, I was suffocating. I was waking up every day to a reality that was fundamentally misaligned with who I was. I saw decisions being made that prioritized short term optics over long term people. I saw a culture that preached family but practiced disposability without hesitation. I would sit in these high level strategy meetings discussing annual strategic plans, quarterly targets, and marketing campaigns. But my mind wasn't on the metrics. My mind was on the people inside the room who were making decisions that would impact the lives of people outside the room. I realized that while I loved marketing, my soul lit up when I was leading. The moments that I really cherished weren't the ones that can be measured on paper. They were the one on ones, the relationships. It was seeing a team member have a breakthrough. It was helping someone navigate a conflict. It was helping someone find a solution to their problem. I realized that marketing was just the vehicle, but helping people grow and transform, that was the fuel. That was my light bulb moment. Every career transition wasn't because of me not knowing who I was or what I wanted. It was about changing the vehicle through which I help people grow and transform. But here's the root cause of the misalignment that was brewing. I was trying to do this people first work inside systems that were designed to chew people up. I realized that staying in that seat wasn't just a career choice, it was a betrayal of my own values. I was living in what I call zones of misalignment, and it was eating me alive. I felt like a fraud. I was preaching alignment to my teams, but I was living in total misalignment. And that's when I learned the hardest lesson of my life. You can't build a life you're proud of on a weak foundation. So I made the decision to leave a company that I had given a decade of my life to. Leaving that 9 to 5 wasn't just about starting a business, even though that's the story that we chose to tell. It was an act of survival. It was a moment I decided that I could no longer build someone else's vision. I felt called to pursue something bigger than that, something even bigger than myself. I had to build a solution to the problem that we were all experiencing. I had to pursue my own vision. Throughout my 20 years of experience, I've always had the privilege to serve in the trenches of leadership. I saw the tangible impact a leader has on a human being, the inspiration from the great ones, and the demoralization from the bad ones. I made a commitment early on to strive to be the leader that people deserved. The world has shifted and it continues to change day by day. The last decade, amplified by the pandemic, brought this workplace crisis into sharp focus for me and for so many others. It wasn't just a shortage of good leaders, it was an epidemic of misalignment and toxic leadership. And I realized that my marketing agency vision was grossly insufficient. Marketing alone couldn't fix the foundational rot of a misaligned culture. It wasn't easy to leave. I had bills to pay, I had a family, but I realized the cost of staying was much higher than the cost of leaving. And that was the spark. I realized that the world didn't need another agency. It needed a force dedicated to solving the root cause of the problem. It needed help finding its own agency. That's why the Maur Company was born. Out of my desire to give more, to push for more impact, to help others become more, to help them achieve more than they thought they could. It's about the conviction that we're all capable of so much more impact, more joy, more connection. And if we can just get the roadblocks out of the way, we can make it all happen. It was my first step to finding my own alignment. I wanted to help people experience the same transformative power of alignment that I had just discovered. When I stepped away, I had to deconstruct everything. I looked back at my 20 years and asked, why is this so hard? Why are so many smart, capable, good people miserable? Why do millions of people have to force two separate identities between work and life? How do we fix this? And that's exactly why I launched this podcast, to find answers to these burning questions. This debut season was dedicated to exploring one critical idea that emerged from my reflection: alignment. Through our conversations, we learned that alignment isn't just a corporate metric. It's tied to authenticity, vulnerability, connection, values, and identity. But in our pursuit of fixing the workplace, we often chase the wrong thing first. We chase engagement. We try to hack productivity or boost morale with perks: office lunches, team building activities, free soda in the break room, pizza parties. But as I discussed with Marcus Combs, you can't be engaged if you're not first aligned. Now imagine your car. If your wheels are out of alignment, sure, you can drive it. You can get from point A to point B, but you'll have to hold on to that steering wheel with dear life and put extra effort to control it, because when you let go, your car starts to slowly drift out of your lane, putting you and others at risk. And the worse that alignment is, the harder it becomes to keep the vehicle straight. It's the exact same concept when it comes to being aligned with your work or with your business. As a listener, you're aware that this podcast is called Aligned, Engaged, Fulfilled, but unless you've been a guest, you may not know yet why that is. I've shared bits and pieces of this throughout the season, but let me give you the full context here. This progression from aligned to engaged to fulfilled represents my core philosophy about what our experience should be in the world of work. Throughout my career, I've had the privilege of connecting with and leading thousands of people at different stages of life, career, and business growth. And one fundamental thing has always been true: we are all in pursuit of fulfillment. At the end of the day, we all want to be satisfied with what we're doing, what we're contributing, and what we're leaving behind. But we've been going about it all wrong. For too long, we've focused on finding ways to be engaged in the things that we're doing, to the point that it became flawed, forced, and fake. But the pandemic put all of this under a microscope. It forced us to slow down, to have time to think and reflect on where our lives were, on what we wanted. And it revealed that for too long, we've been running on empty, running ourselves to the ground, only to lay in our deathbeds with regrets. So I reflected. I spent a lot of time thinking back on my experiences throughout my career. As a young man, an entry level employee, a teacher, a salesperson, a manager, a director, a C suite executive, I thought about the conversations that I had with employees, with employers, mentors, coaches, leaders, the good and the bad. I thought about the kind of leaders I had, the kinds that I wanted to be like and the kinds that I didn't want to be like. I thought about the kind of leader that I've been and the kind of leader that I still wanted to be. And it all came down to this: that no matter who we are or what we're doing, we're all in search of fulfillment. But our journey to finding it, to achieving it, is determined by how aligned we are with ourselves, with our jobs, our organizations, and the people that we surround ourselves with. All of it informs our decisions, our behaviors, our perspectives, and our responses. It was undeniable, but I understood it. And that realization transformed me. More importantly, I felt called to help others through it, to help them understand it just as I have, and to help them experience the same transformation that I did. So I launched my coaching and consulting firm, and I created this podcast to have conversations with people who have gone through the same journey and can share their insights so that we can help people at scale. And if you're listening to this right now, I hope it's safe to say that we're doing exactly that. This first season has proven my core hypothesis about how we find fulfillment in our lives. Alignment is the prerequisite. It's the removal of friction. Engagement is the byproduct. It happens naturally when that friction is gone. Fulfillment is the outcome. It's the deep knowing that you're in the right place. This season, this podcast isn't just a collection of interviews. It's me trying to prove that hypothesis. I wanted to see if others felt it too, and what I found blew me away. So, how do we find alignment? Most frameworks focus on just one thing: your values. As long as your values align with the organization, then you're good to go. But that's just one piece of the puzzle. And as much as I'd love for it to be that simple, it was much more complex than that. Misalignment happens in part because we're trying to solve human problems with mechanical tools. We treat business and our careers like a math problem. Finance, operations, logistics, those are all black and white processes. They're binary. I've learned from 20 years in the trenches that our careers and our businesses have really three major gray areas where most of our problems arise. They're messy, they're complex, but more importantly, they can't operate independently. My framework focuses on leadership, marketing, and strategy, specifically because I'm fighting the crisis of silos. As I discussed with Julius Alejandro, strategy requires an ecosystem view. And because they're messy and complex, we let them drift apart. We end up with strategy without humanity, we have marketing without truth, and we have leadership without self awareness. You can't fix the culture if the narrative is false. You can't fix the execution if the people don't believe the story. We have to look at the whole board. So let me walk you through this framework. I'm going to give you a very high level overview of this, but for the sake of not making this a 4-hour episode, I won't delve into the nuances of each piece. And again, this framework applies to your career transformation as much as it applies to business transformation. So as you look at this with me, seek to understand it in whichever context applies to you and your situation. If you listen to this and you want to learn more about how to use this framework and apply it to your situation, reach out to me and we'll schedule your strategy session. Let's start with what I call our core foundations. These are the areas that have to really be strong in order for you to be aligned. Let's start with leadership. In a business context, this is the engine. It sets the vision and shapes the culture by exemplifying the company's core values. Christy Pretzinger showed us in the last episode that leadership is about building a cultural balance sheet where kindness is a strategic asset. But for you, in the context of your career, this is about your personal leadership. This isn't about managing others, it's about leading yourself. It defines your fundamental values, your self awareness, and the discipline that guides your daily actions. We learned from Linda Harvey in episode 4 that you can't lead others until you lead yourself. And Christy echoed this by arguing this importance of self awareness. Next is marketing. For a company, this is how it connects with the market. But marketing isn't just ads, it's about how you communicate value and trust. Tanya and Tony Thorson in episodes 2 and 3 taught us that marketing loses its nerve when it forgets the human. More importantly, marketing isn't just about the external market, and this is where most business leaders get it wrong. True marketing begins inside the organization. As I discussed with Monsi and Natalie in episode 7, your employees are your primary customers. When you market effectively to them and you build an unforgettable employee experience, your customer experience becomes unbeatable. But you have to first build from the inside out. For you and your career, this translates to your personal brand. It's about how you present yourself to the world. It's a story that you tell on social media, in interviews, and in meetings. This is where authenticity lives and masking festers. Tom Serco showed us in episodes 8 and 9 that in a brand first economy, marketing, or in this case, your personal brand, is the currency of trust that you build with your network. Finally, strategy in business isn't a to do list, it's the infrastructure, the direction, and the plan. For you, this is your personal strategy. It's the concrete roadmap for achieving your career goals. It's not just hoping for a promotion, it's building the infrastructure and laying the foundation to get there successfully. Julia showed us that strategy is the bridge between vision and reality, reminding us that without this personal infrastructure, your ambition is just a dream. And Audra Talamantes in the very first episode reminded us that if your strategy fights against your own brain, your identity, you set yourself up to fail. Now, let's get real. Let's look at the intersections of these core foundations. The pain that you feel, the toxicity, the confusion, happens where these core foundations overlap and disconnect. And trust me, the pain of personal misalignment is just as real as corporate toxicity. The first zone of misalignment is identity, and this happens at the intersection of leadership and marketing. In business, this is the gap between culture and brand. If your leadership acts one way, but your marketing promises another, you have an identity crisis and a brand that no one understands or believes in. But in the context of your career, this is the intersection of your personal leadership, which is who you are, and your personal brand, which is how you show up. If there's a gap here, if you're projecting an image that doesn't match your true values, you become inauthentic. This is where imposter syndrome starts to manifest. Katie Toro spoke about this brilliantly regarding career change. When your soul no longer matches your job title, you have an identity crisis. You're living in a fractured identity and you have to realign. The second zone of misalignment is behavior, and this happens at the intersection of leadership and strategy. In the business context, this is where culture meets execution. If your strategy requires agility, but your leadership style is micromanagement, your employees' behavior will be paralyzed. This is where we see decisions and daily actions that contradict the values on the wall. For you, in the context of your career, this connects your personal leadership, which are your values, your intentions, with your personal strategy, which are your goals and your plans. Misalignment here manifests as undermining behavior. You have a goal, but your daily habits contradict it. You self sabotage. Brett Klicka showed us the cost of this burnout. When the demands of the strategy outpace the energy of the leader, the behavior collapses. The third zone of misalignment is communication, and this happens at the intersection of marketing and strategy. In the business context, this is the promise versus the plan. If you promise a seamless experience but lack the systems to deliver it, your communication becomes a lie. Monty Shukla and Natalie Jackson proved this. The employee experience must mirror the customer experience. If they don't match, trust is broken. For you, in the context of your career, this is where your personal brand meets your personal strategy. If this is misaligned, you have ineffective communication. You might be working hard, but you aren't articulating your value to the right people. You become the best kept secret in the office, and that's a dangerous place to be. So, what holds all of this together? What prevents the leadership, marketing, and strategy from drifting apart? It's not the company that you work for or have built, it's you and the people around you. At the center of my model is people. People are the anchor. They enable us to achieve the things that we want to achieve. People are the common denominator and the linchpin to a truly sustainable, people centric world of work. The way that we treat them and how we leverage their value and contributions defines the strength of our core foundations. As Anna Bleer showed us with her fearless journey, culture is the internal product that fuels the people. Christy showed us that leading with kindness, vulnerability, and trust are crucial to building thriving organizations. And John Lee in episode 5 reminded us that even our physical environments, our offices, and our workspaces are just vessels. The return to office debate isn't about real estate, it's about connection. If the environment doesn't serve the human need for community, it becomes a liability, not an asset. In the career model, the center anchor is the self, but it isn't just about you in isolation. It's your authentic self, shaped and fueled by the network, mentors, and influences that you surround yourself with. Regardless of the context, whether career or business, people are the lifeblood. If you don't anchor on them, the whole system fails. And finally, guiding us and holding the entire framework together, the outer circle, is purpose. This is your ultimate why. Audra reminded us of the stakes in either context. If your purpose fights against your identity or your personal truth, you cannot sustain it. Julia showed us the macro view, the rise of social entrepreneurship where profit and purpose are integrated into one ecosystem. But Marcus gave us the micro view, the tools to find this internally. He taught us that if we don't objectively understand our own innate purpose, our personal why, we will spend our careers swimming upstream. You can't align your life if you don't know where your North Star is. And again, this framework isn't just corporate theory, this is equally for you as an individual. As we navigate the worst job market in generations in a world changing faster than we can keep up with, the days of becoming a passive player are over. The old world told you to be an employee, to wait for instructions to fit into a box. But that world is dead. As I discussed with Katie, you're now the CEO of your career, of Me Incorporated. Stop waiting for your company to fix this. You're not a victim of the job market, you're a player in it. When you adopt the Me Incorporated mindset, you stop asking for permission and you start creating value. The problems in the world of work that we're experiencing every day can't be fixed with a one sided solution. Look at your own career through this lens. Are your behaviors aligned with your strategy? Is your personal brand aligned with your leadership values? If not, you have the power to fix it. The well being of yourself and the clarity of your purpose depend entirely on how well those foundations are aligned. I've spent the season highlighting the knowledge and expertise of others, but today I want to be very clear. When I left my corporate job, it was because I realized my personal strategy was at war with my personal leadership. I had to realign. And it was terrifying, but it was the only way to find fulfillment. I didn't share my story today to vent, and I didn't share my framework to sell you on my services. I shared it because I want you to know that I see you. If you're sitting in your car or at your desk, feeling that gnawing disconnect and that misalignment brewing, I know what that feels like. But I also know what it feels like to fix it and how to build a life that you can truly be grateful for. This framework, the Maur method, it's what I do. But it's so much more than that. It's how I live my life. It's the lens that I look through as I navigate my own life. It's how I help people now, and it's how I'm going to change the world. I'm a transformation coach and consultant, and I want to help you turn periods of transition into moments of transformation. If you're a leader and your organization feels stuck, if you see those Glassdoor numbers reflecting your own culture, if you know that your team is capable of more, I can help you diagnose that alignment gap and fix it. If you're an individual thinking about your career and you're feeling that gnawing disconnect and you're ready to stop being a passenger in your own career, if you want to build your Me Incorporated, but you don't know where to start, I can guide you. You don't have to do it alone. I don't offer this lightly. I offer it because I know how hard it is to see the label from inside the bottle. If you need an outside perspective, I offer a free strategy session to help you find some clarity without commitment. Visit themourcompany.com or click the link in the show notes and let's move you from frustrated to fulfilled. But whether we work together or not, I have a challenge for you. Stop being a passive participant, waiting for the world of work to get better. Stop waiting for your boss to be better. Be an active changemaker. It doesn't require a grand gesture. It starts with how you lead yourself. It starts with one honest conversation with someone or with yourself. It starts with one fearless decision to align your life with your values. It starts with treating your career with the dignity of a business. We've spent the season building the foundation of alignment, but as we've established, alignment is just the starting line. Next season, we're going to dive deep into the messy middle. We're going to talk about what it takes to actually be engaged, the nuances of culture, the realities of leadership in the modern era, and yes, we're going to talk about compensation because you can't be engaged if you aren't equitably valued. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit that follow or subscribe button to make sure that you don't miss us when we return in February. This has been season 1. Thank you for trusting me with your time, for lending me your eyes and your ears. Let's go build workplaces and lives that truly work. I'm your host, Clarence Moore, and I'll see you in season 2.